fall from grace both on and off the field, and now Matt Rhule tries to implement his rules to get Baylor back into prominence. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, previewing every Power 5 team and predicting their result leading to the college football playoff. All right, talking Baylor Bears. And, of course, Art Briles was Art Briles, and Art Briles was foolish and stupid and negligent and maybe even worse. He no longer heads up this football program, and Matt Rhule is trying to correct image and perception and actual tangible penalties that he has to sort through and resurrect this football program. A program that finished 5 straight seasons from 2011 through 15 in the top 15 in the nation. Then, of course, Art Briles' conduct away from the field and what he allowed to have happen and what he ignored proved to be his undoing and the undoing of the football program temporarily, or maybe permanently. We shall see. So in 2017, Matt Rhule had to come in and, like we have seen in other situations, Penn State being the classic example, institute a whole new culture and separate himself from the past while embracing what were purported to be the values and the integrity of the football program and the university previously. All right. He got young players tons of reps. Listen to these numbers. He had a freshman playing quarterback, a freshman top running back. He had 2 guys lead his team in receiving who had only 4 career receptions before 2017. He had a freshman lead his defensive front in tackles and secondary in tackles, another freshman. And most of the offensive line starts were by guys that had never started a game before 2017. And Baylor won the one game. They lost 11. They went 1-8 in conference play. They beat Kansas. So does that count as a win? Well, it does on the record, just like the rest of them. All right, let's start at quarterback. This is a bright spot. Did you see Charlie Brewer play football at all last year? Do yourself a favor and watch this kid play. 68% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He got the win against Kansas. And it's actually a pretty decent Kansas defense that he played against. He brought back this Baylor team, and remember, believe me, because of the point spread and the numbers involved and the line, I had myself tracking this game even though it was out of hand. West Virginia had a big lead against Baylor, and Charlie Brewer brought them all the way back to 38-36 in that one. He's got a 4-star freshman backup also in Gary Bohannon, so if he goes down, they're in reliable hands in terms of a talent standpoint. But Charlie Brewer is the future of the Baylor program as a sophomore now, with all that starting experience as a freshman. Denzel Mims caught 61 balls for 1,000-plus yards and 8 touchdowns last year. Chris Platt had 16 receptions and 5 touchdowns. You've got also Strickland, Pooh Strickland, 32 catches, 1 touchdown. Now, the interesting wild card in this offense is, of course, Jalen Hurd. You've heard of him from Tennessee. Jalen Hurd is now a wide receiver after sharing running back carries, and this is incredible to think about now, considering the freshman or the rookie season that Alvin Kamara had with the New Orleans Saints in the NFL as arguably the best running back in the NFL suddenly. And Jalen Hurd was fighting him for the top spot at Tennessee. But now he's a wide receiver. So they have proven guys at wide receiver, starting with, of course, Mims. And now Hurd's an interesting prospect to get him the football in various ways. Okay, the Baylor offense was dead last in all realistic, logical, meaningful rushing statistics and all the metrics last. John Lovett ran for 445 yards and 7 touchdowns. You had JaMychal Hasty with 4.1 yards per carry and a touchdown. Terrence Williams is a guy that if you go back to 2016, the season before, he ran for 1,000 yards, but only 255 last year. Terrence Williams is one of the trio of Baylor running backs who is still running for touchdowns and yardage against the North Carolina defense from the Russell Athletic Bowl that season. On the offensive line, they bring in a Clemson transfer in Jake Fromagin. I did a horrible job of rewriting the name, so I can't even read it. I believe it's difficult to pronounce anyways, but I didn't even write it down in a legible way. So I apologize to Jake. Clemson transfer coming in, and so that's got to be good news. If he was good enough to sign at Clemson, he now will get some time at Baylor. Also, a Central Florida offensive line transfer that I can actually read his name, Christian Beard. Redshirt players, 5 along the offensive line, will play in 2018. So it's going to be rough. It's still a rough work in progress, especially since those are the guys that have to play together as a cohesive unit to allow the name guys we're talking about, Mims and Hurd, and of course, Charlie Brewer, to do what they can do. Defensively, Baylor returns quite a bit here. 6 along the defensive line, 5 linebackers, 7 defensive backs, with double-digit tackles. So all these guys played, and they played significant minutes, and they made some plays. At nose tackle, you've got Ira Lewis, who had 11.5 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks. Linebacker Clay Johnston, 54 tackles, 9 tackles for loss. And their best cornerback, Grayland Arnold, comes back as well. In the non-conference play, Baylor takes on Duke. That's their marquee game of sorts. They went to Durham last year. They lost 34-20 by 2 touchdowns. So they get the return trip by Duke. Maybe they win this game this year. Duke is going to be a little bit improved, coming off a season in which they won a bowl game and went 7-6. So where are the wins for this Baylor football program? Of course, they're not contending for anything, except hopefully for them, maybe a postseason berth if they can maybe go 3-0 non-conference, 3-6 conference. That would be the best we could hope. More realistically, they beat Kansas, and then they have both Texas Tech and Kansas State at home. Those are the target wins right there. I think they beat Kansas, and then they win one of the other 2 games at home against either Texas Tech or Kansas State. And I've got a loss against Duke at home. I don't think that they pull off that win, but it's possible, and that could be a harbinger of good things to come if they're able to upset the Blue Devils, a decent top 50 type team at home. 4-8 for Baylor, 2-7 in the conference. You know the drill. Leave your prediction in the comments section, and don't forget the conference prediction, because that's most important, of course, in vying for a conference championship. So leave your comments, your predictions down in the section below. And, of course, join my mailing list as well at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Leave your name and your email at MarkRogersTV at Gmail for our newsletter that goes out every Monday starting with week 1 of the college football season right here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football.